Welcome everyone and good afternoon. Thank you for joining today's BCD Travel Talk. Today we'll have a discussion about digital health passes and what we need to know about them. We are using Microsoft Teams live event. You can't speak up, but if you would like to raise a question, please use the Q&A function at the right top of your screen and we will answer them at the end of the session. Welcome again everyone. Let me hand over to today's moderator, Jelle Bamelis. Jelle, the floor is yours.
Hello, my name is Jelle Bamelis. I'm a Senior Marketing Manager at BCD Travel, and today it's an absolute pleasure to host this online event where we'll talk about digital health passes. Well, fortunately, I won't be the only one who will do the talking. Joining me today are two of our top BCD experts, Jorge Mesa and Mike Eggleton. We're very pleased to have them here today with us in this Benelux online event, since they have been very popular speakers throughout the entire COVID-19 pandemic, and of course, well before that as well. We will introduce them in a short moment. I would like to remind you that this is a interactive session, and we also posted a link to our live poll, which I invite you to fill in. We will visit the results later on. But first, without any further ado, let's introduce our two speakers, starting with Mike Eggleton. Mike, can you present yourself in just 2 sentences, maybe, to our audience?
Certainly, Jelle. Hi, everyone. My name is Mike Eggleton. I'm Director of Research and Intelligence. I work in the Research and Innovation team at BCD Travel, and my focus is on developments and trends in travel. And clearly, over the last 18 months or so, I've just been working on pandemic, and what it means for travel managers, travellers, and of course the travel industry in general.
And our other speaker, Jorge, what do people need to know about you?
Hello there, I'm Jorge Mesa. I'm Director of Global Crisis Management. I'm based in Barcelona. For the last 10 years, I've been responsible for the Global Crisis Management team. And our focus is basically monitor anything that might affect our business travelers 24/7 and provide support with global crisis management and travel risk management initiatives. So yeah, this is our year. We are busy.
Absolutely, I can imagine that. So welcome to our speakers. Also, welcome to our audience. Thank you for taking some time to join us today. And Jorge, Mike, I really have to tell you that this topic is huge today. Our last webinar was about sustainability. It was the most highly attended webinar we had to date, but today you managed to break the record again. No pressure. I think it just speaks for the importance of this topic with our clients and the role digital health passes will play in the path to safe business travel. Before we start the conversation about the digital health passes, let's first have a look at some data that we collected. Mike, I think you're very familiar with this since it's one of the surveys your team has been doing. And we can see here what are travel program priorities. This is an online survey we held amongst global travel managers, and in the results you can clearly see that the two most highly rated items are duty of care and traveler satisfaction and well-being. I don't think this comes as a surprise to most attendees here on the call today. Another question that's on many people's minds, of course, in this pandemic is, when do you think the majority of business travelers will start traveling again? And that's exactly what we've asked the participants here today. And I will briefly share the results with you. And Mike, I'm going to ask you to touch on that to see if it's more or less surprising. So as you can see here, when do you expect business travel to return at your company? We see that the majority, and this is very hopeful, of the votes go to Q3 2021, meaning after the summer month, September. A quarter, maybe less than a quarter, Q4 2021. But of course, we see, and again, some other votes updating here, and a little, some people thinking that it will only be for 2022 next year. Mike, is this surprising to you at all?
Dare I say, not really. could you put that back on the screen so at least I can refer to it? But
absolutely.
I mean, for us, North American Airlines, for a start, have been saying that they expect business travel to resume from September onwards as well, and that's no surprise really. We're now into the summer months. People are vacationing, and September is when business travel really kicks off. So it's understandable that people are more inclined to wait until September before they get flying again. And of course, things are improving in Europe. Most countries across Europe are doing a fantastic job with their vaccination programs. And by that time, most of them will have completed the vaccinations of their adult populations or got very close to them. So yes, it's no surprise to see people very keen and prepared to be travelling again. Those who are looking a bit further into future, maybe they're being a little more cautious. And certainly there is good reason for that, particularly as the experience in the UK is showing us, where we're now having to deal with the Delta variant, which, it's one of those things that you have to deal with. If you start relaxing, if you start reopening, which Europe is about to do, you have to expect cases to start rising. But the important thing is that the vaccine is helping to break the link between infections and hospitalizations and deaths. So it's basically, you're going to have to learn to live with COVID-19, and that is exactly what we're doing, and that's what the vaccine and the success of the vaccines, the success of the programs are helping us to do, and will help travel recover again.
Mm-hmm. And I think you mentioned a very important part in there, and that's giving back that traveler confidence. And that's actually what we have asked our audience as well. What's the most important requirement for travelers to feel confident again to start traveling? Let me just share the results on this question that we had from the audience. And there we see the majority actually saying that they don't want any quarantine requirements before or after travel, which, Mike, I'd say that makes kind of sense, since time is money and time spent in quarantine.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think that's my biggest fear as an individual, in that if you go away on a trip and let's say you end up testing positive during that trip, you can end up being quarantined at the destination and then face quarantine when you get home as well. And of course, that can be highly disruptive. And it's no surprise to see a restriction like quarantine featuring highly in the factors that are going to give people the confidence to travel again. Any European country will know that we've been going in, out, back in again in terms of lockdowns and restrictions. And you're most exposed to the disruption when you're away on a trip. So I'm not surprised to see quarantine, and it's the biggest disruption you can face on a trip, isn't it? So even if you come back to the UK, you can spend 10 days in a hotel, not of your choice, and there are certain places in Europe I think I'd far sooner be spending 10 days in a hotel, but the UK is not one of them, I'm afraid. Yeah. So
I can imagine something along those lines, yes. So that brings us to the actual topic of today, which will help us move down that path of the safe going back to travel safely. Many industry initiatives were started to prepare for the stage of recovery, and digital health passes is surely one of those. And I'm going to ask Jorge, who's the specialist here, about digital health passes. Can you please explain what is a digital health pass? Why do we need it? And how does this work? 3 big questions for you to answer.
Well, let's start at what it is. It is very simple. It's an app or online certification that validates COVID test results, vaccination records, or recovery records. So that is helping to prove compliance with country entry requirements. So that is what is a digital health pass. But why we need those digital health pass? And many people might remember, and I have here in all the webinars, I have my yellow passport, that yellow passes and international certification vaccination existed for years now. but this is manually expedited. This is handwritten, so this is very easy to falsify, and also requires so many resources on the border authorities, airlines, to make sure that this is authentic. So for that reason, this needs to be digital. And how it's going to work? How it's going to work? You will have your mobile. You will download the app that the airline is requiring you for travel. Then you will upload your itinerary into the mobile, and then either the app is going to tell you, hey, for this destination, you need to have this PCR test 72 hours before arriving, or you need to have fully vaccinated with this type of vaccine. So whatever is the entry requirement, you will then put your documentation into the app by scanning the documents and so on. And then the app is going to give you the OK to fly. If you need to do a test, also is going to provide you which are the next to you facilities with that their approval to do those PCR tests. So only approved facilities for that app is going to work. And then once you get your OK to travel, you will have a QR code or a green code that you can show at the airport once you go to the boarding. That will expedite time. That will help people to move around. Just to give an idea, in Heathrow Airport, they were saying that it takes up to 20 to 30 minutes per passenger every time that they need to check all the documentation. So imagine if we are aiming to go to normal levels, that needs to be something that will help the airlines. So that's, in a nutshell, is how this works.
Yes, and thank you for showing us that the yellow piece of paper. I think a lot of us recognize that. Of course, that yellow piece of paper, we all recognize it, but the digital health passes, is it a universal solution? Are there many different options that people have today, or is there any accreditation or a proven single solution for this?
Right, Angela, and there is where it comes the complexity. Today, we compile a report that I recommend to all the audience to read it. We launched that, I think 1 month ago, 2 months ago, together with Mike. And we identify at that time around 20 different initiatives about digital health passes worldwide. Some of them, they are just, kind of like pop-up initiatives. They don't have too much credibility. Some of them, they are more important. But we identify that as per the organizations involved, the globally reach and all that, we identify that there are, I would say, the 4 main today are the ICC AOK Pass, which is from the International Chamber of Commerce, together with International SOS. Then you have Verifly, which is being developed by a company together with American Airlines. Then you have Common Pass, which you have it's a non-profit initiative, this one, and it's a Rockefeller Foundation together with the Airports Council International, together with the World Economic Forum. So all that, they developed the Common Pass. And then you have the IATA Travel Pass, the International Airline Transport Association. They create this pass as well for the airlines. So all those are digital health passes initiative. Those are initiatives that will validate entry requirements against your credentials, and they are more or less the ones that they are starting to do. We are starting to see airlines adopting. Back to your question, is one unique solution? I'm afraid not. It's going to be several different ones, and we will need to see some consolidation at some point. Then there is another thing that we need to also remember. And for our audience speaking here in Europe, the European Union developed what is going to be called the Green Pass, which is, I also have it here. The Green Pass, it's going to be the credential for all the European Union countries. And with this credential, you will be able to upload this information into the Digital Health Pass for that to be validated. So we will see more consolidation in some point, but we are not yet there. So
absolutely, thank you, Jorge. And I really want to specify to the attendees of the call, indeed, Jorge and Mike are the authors of a very extensive report about digital health passes, which we'll also share with you after this session in our follow-up communication, so you have the overview of all the different possibilities that exist today. And Jorge, you briefly mentioned benefits in travel time, reduced travel time, no more 25 minutes checking all the documents you have available, but just scanning a barcode. And I was just wondering, are there any other benefits for travelers when using digital health passes? And I'm going to ask Mike that question specifically.
Thanks. Yeah, I think there are a number of benefits. Traveling during a pandemic has become incredibly complicated now, and digital health passes are going to help travellers navigate these complexities. Yeah, individual countries all seem to have their own rules on who can travel and what they need to travel, and it seems to be changing almost on a daily basis in some cases. So it's very hard to make sure that you're obeying the rules and you're meeting the conditions of travel, and digital health passes can cut through all that complexity. And of course, things have been made a lot more complex in recent months with the success of vaccination programs, because now we're finding that if people have been fully vaccinated when they travel internationally, in some cases they can avoid some of the restrictions that non-vaccinated people are going to be subject to. So, quarantine is a prime example, and clearly that's something that our attendees today have shown they're particularly concerned about. And even in some cases, if you're fully vaccinated, there's no need to be tested on arrival, and that's not necessarily happening within Europe, but there are some countries around the world that are starting to introduce those sorts of ease-ins, and of course, again, that's more complexity being added in. So that's where the benefits of digital health passes are going to grow, and as the name implies, they're digital. And as Jorge has already said, that means you don't have to present test results and vaccination documents. They make it a lot easier to verify compliance digitally. So that means that arrivals and departure processes at airports are going to be a lot quicker, a lot smoother, and there's a greater guarantee that you have actually met the conditions of entry at your destination. Previously, as Jorge said, people have been queuing for 15 to 30 minutes at Heathrow to be processed at check-in, where the check-in agent is busily trying to look at documents to make sure that they're actually allowed to fly. Digital health passes take all of that activity, responsibility away from the check-in agents. It's all done prior, it's all done offline. You end up with a ready-to-go tick or a QR code. And the other good thing is that they're a communication tool. So all the parties involved in travel, so the individual travellers, the airlines they're flying with, the authorities whose borders they've got to cross, testing centres, health authorities, they can all essentially talk to each other via that device. So it becomes, if you like, its own little sort of self-contained ecosystem. And as things continually, rapidly change, digital health passes are the most likely environment that can keep up with all that change and make sure that you continue to travel seamlessly and without disruption and meeting all the conditions that are required of you.
Nice. So good to know that digital health passes will make the traveler's life easier. However, I'm going to play devil's advocate a bit here. We did a survey back in February 2021, and I'm going to share those results in a moment here. And there you can see that data privacy is a major concern for a lot of business travelers. As you can see, it's one of the top concerns. I think this is a more general trend as well. People becoming more concerned with their data rights. You see a lot of legislation being passed, GDPR, just to name one. In this online survey, what does this mean for digital health passes? I assume they need to be secure as well. Is there a reason for them to be concerned with their privacy when using a digital health pass? And I don't know which one of you two gentlemen wants to answer this one. Jorge, maybe go ahead.
I'm happy to jump
or
in.
Or Mike, jump in.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're right. There is certainly an underlying concern about data privacy and data protection, and it's particularly the case across Europe. But protecting data privacy, part of most digital health pass functionality is to act as a digital wallet in some cases. where they're holding copies of test certificates, vaccination certificates. And that's much in the same way as you're already doing with other personal and private information on your mobile devices. So, you know, I don't know about you, but I've got face recognition on my mobile, you know, or thumbprint recognition or passcode recognition. So the security issues arguably are the same. And you're not actually giving access to your medical records, it's just results of certain tests or vaccinations. And you know, a lot of digital health passes go much further than that. And as we've already said, you know, they provide links to say that you've passed all the conditions, or a QR code that directs authorities to the records that confirm you've met those conditions. You know, and most people have probably entered this information online check-in already, so it's just been accessed there. And for me, I think the bigger data privacy issue with all of this is the fact that you often need to carry paper copies of these testing certificates and vaccination certificates, and they're a lot easier to lose or have someone access perhaps than what's on your mobile device. And of course that then brings me on to kind of an added bonus of a digital health pass, in that it enables you to store backup copies of documents that you may otherwise lose while you're on a trip. You know, I'm old-fashioned. I like to take paper copies of everything, and it becomes a complete mess while I'm away. So, yeah. I mean, I think there's certainly, people have a genuine concern, and I respect that. And I wouldn't say that the digital health pass completely allay that, but I think there are good reasons that those concerns need not be as severe as perhaps some people have them.
Absolutely, Mike. And you're touching on a very valuable very valid topic there, because we've seen in the past a lot of travelers like to keep paper documentation on them. Usually they chuck them in the bin somewhere in a hotel at the airport. And that's really where their data is up for grabs, versus with this digital piece, it lives on your passport. So one tip, maybe never throw away your itineraries or whatever somewhere in a random bin at the airport or whatever, because that leaves your data really unattended. Maybe Jorge, about paper documentations, blast from the past. You had that yellow health passport over there. And I was just wondering, it has registrations, vaccines, yellow fever, DTP. Can you elaborate more on the difference now between that yellow paper that we used to have in our wallets versus the digital health pass? Does one really replace the other?
It's going to be something that is going to be replaced at some point. So the World Health Organization is already organizing this in digital. So we will see the yellow, this yellow passport being digitalized, and it's going to be, there is some of these health passes, some of these digital health passes are already having this option to include other vaccinations in the future. So they are already foreseeing this as something that that they will be moving forward. So back to what I explained earlier, this is a credential, a health credential. So the yellow passport is a health credential, the same as the new Europe Green Pass that is going to be a health credential, and that will be validated by with the entry requirements into the digital health pass. You both mentioned great things about the papers being installed. If I show you this credential, you will see that you have my date of birth here, you have my full name. So if someone wants to store my identity, they could use this plus other things to try. When you will have the digital health pass, you will see only a QR code. So one of the elements, that the key elements of these solutions is that they're only going to give information that is necessary to pass. So it's kind of like, what you need, that I fulfill it on the entry requirements, so they don't see anything. If I go to a check-in desk today and I need to show, maybe I don't want to show that I'm from 1969, I look younger. So why I need to show those dates to someone? The other way, they will just scan you, they will see you are good to go, and that's it. Today we have that with the ESTA. When you fly into the United States, you need to fill ESTA. When you go to the airport, the check-in, actually they don't know where you're going, they don't know the hotel where you're staying, they don't know, but you fill all that information into the form. So that is going to be a very similar way of acting. So yeah, it's going to be next generation yellow passport somehow.
Absolutely. So digital health passes, if I understand you correctly, it's not a short-term trend. This is here to stay, and it will be incorporated in the entirety of the digital health pass. Let's call it. All right. This brings us to a next question. When requesting a digital health passport or applying for one, whose responsibility is that? Is it the traveler himself? And also, who takes the lead in this? Should an organization or the travel manager invest in a digital health pass app for its travelers? Is it something that the company says, hey, this is what the technology that we're using? Or is that at the moment the travel themselves who decides that?
It's going to be the traveler. So the organization, travel managers, the companies, they will need to provide that information to the traveler. It will be good to inform the traveler. It will be good to tell them that this will help them to reduce friction on travel. But it's going to be up to the traveler to apply, to fulfill this, and so on. So at the moment, TMCs, travel manager, we are here to provide that information to support, but it's up to the traveler to do it. It's the same as the online booking, online check-in, right? So you choose to do your boarding card before going to the airport. Your life is going to be much easier at the beginning. When that was launched, not many people was doing that, but it's up to the traveler to do it. So to provide information, and the companies, these apps are free, so it's no point for the companies to buy anything, so they can download these apps free. The only thing that they need to consider, and we will see moving forward, because this is piloting, is, are your travelers having the mobiles, company mobiles? Is this something that is going to work well offline? Do you need to use roaming charges? So, because if you are traveling to India and you need to use your data, maybe it's going to be very expensive there. So those things will need to be considered on the T&E and so on, just to make sure that if there are any additional costs, but for the rest, it's up to the traveler.
Okay. Which role does BCD Travel play in all of that? What are we doing for our clients regarding digital health passes?
Our role is to educate and to inform travelers. So basically, we are providing with research, we provide papers, we provide information, but also we put all this information into the COVID Hub. So that's a very, very, very effective tool and an important tool. So you can see any entry requirements traveling from A to B. You will see what is required, and you will see also if that airline is using a digital health pass, which one they are using. So we keep that up to date on the airline card, so you will see all the information there. Also, with FreeSource, the travelers will receive notifications, push notifications for country requirements, for airport, for airline information. So basically, our role is to educate and to inform, to support them as much as we can. Moving forward, maybe there will be some sort of the digital health passes will allow us to do more to integrate travel itineraries and things like that. Is yet to see. So far, they are not into that game yet. I think moving forward, we will see more things that we will be able to. But we are here to make sure that we have the latest for them. That's for sure.
Absolutely. And more recently, I also read that BCD Travel has signed or is part of the Good Health Pass Collaborative. Can you tell our audience something more about that collaborative? What the goals are of this collaboration?
Yeah, that's pretty simple. That's a cross section. It's a cross sector initiative. There is technology, health companies, travel companies. We are the first TMC joining that, but because we thought that the objective that they are trying to accomplish, which is one is to build a blueprint for interoperability for the different digital health passes to speak one another, so you don't need to have several when you are traveling, and to restore international travel. Those are the main objectives. They just published the first draft for the interoperability blueprint that they are going to launch, and they will be kind of like setting up which are the standards. That will help all the major players are on that collaborative organization. And I like to call it like, it's like the United Nations of the digital health passes. So I think it is very important and to be there to be aware of what's going on and what is going to be moving forward in regards to digital health passes.
Excellent. Well, thank you, gentlemen. I'm actually all out of questions. Let's see what we got in the Q&A and have a look at some of the questions our attendees have been asking. Somebody is asking, what about Ireland? Will they also accept travel with digital health passes from 1st of July onward? That's a very specific one. Any of you gentlemen care to touch on that? Maybe Mike?
I can't say I can comment specifically on Ireland. I think Jorge can correct me on this, but the EU certificate is that a Schengen initiative, and Ireland is not part of Schengen. So in that respect, it's not as likely as other Schengen area countries to be included, but I would be surprised if it didn't participate in the interests of maintaining intra-EU travel. Would be my guess.
Jorge, do you have any other insights you'd like to share?
The Green Pass is for all the EU countries and some additional countries such as Switzerland, Norway, the ones that they have free movement. Okay, and UK is no longer on that piece, and it's going. But they are working to integrate into the EU Green Pass. So the Ireland citizens, they will have the EU Green Pass, that's for sure, and they will use the digital health passes from IATA Common Pass. That would be another thing, depending on the airline serving that country, that would be a different thing. But for sure, 1st of July, any European Union countries will have access to the Green Pass, that's for sure.
Absolutely. And the EU has said that it will extend those passes to residents of third countries as well, haven't they?
Yeah.
Excellent. Jorge, there's another question here. You mentioned airlines briefly. How do you know which pass needs to be used? How do you know which pass needs to be used for each airline? Is it something universal or is it specifically per airline? That's one of the questions we're getting. Right.
So I would recommend travelers to go to the COVID hub. They will see the airline they are traveling. They will see that if they are flying with Emirates, they need to use IATA. If they're flying with Swiss, they need to use Common Pass. So there they will see which one is accepted. This is going to be very similar to when you go to a restaurant. You will see which credit cards are accepted into the restaurant. So you will need to use Amex, Visa, MasterCard, depending on. So it's going to be a moment where we need to have probably all of these apps on your phone, and you might need to be using one or another depending on it. At the moment, this is voluntary, this is not mandatory. So the airlines, they are going to also inform the same way that they're sending you an email saying, hey, you're ready for your check-in, so make sure you complete these forms and so on. So that information is going to be available for the travelers.
As Jorge said, it's not compulsory. So the only thing you need to check is which app, if the airline uses them at all, they would recognize. And it's not set in stone yet. It's not firm yet because we have a number of one world carriers, American, British Airways, JAL, I think Iberia, certainly Alaska Airlines, all using Verifly, but also looking at the other passes as well. So you may find that you can use multiple passes with the same airlines, but they might have their preferred pass. And I think SkyTeam is doing something similar, but you could easily see Verifly as the preferred One World pass with IATA Travel Pass maybe as a secondary. And of course, IATA Travel Pass is probably the one that's going to be most likely accepted by the largest number of airlines because it is the International Air Transport Association. It's their body, it's their trade body. So That's the one that's most likely to be sort of everywhere. And of course, you can also check in with the airline as well. You know, they're pretty good at actually identifying which ones they use.
Absolutely. The other questions I'm getting here also, which apps are up and running, are already being used now. But I just want to confirm to our attendees that we will be sharing that report that we talked about earlier from Jorge, from Mike, so you have the full overview. And as well as Jorge already mentioned, our COVID-19 information hub is a really good information source to share with your travelers to see which kind of measures they need to take into account, or which documentation they need. And Jorge, maybe one for you. I think you briefly mentioned this as well, but what if a traveler refuses to use a digital health pass? Is there an alternative to that?
It's not mandatory, so this will help him to go through a much easier experience because there will be less queues. But we know that it's not everyone is so quickly to adopt new things. So probably it's going to be the travelers that they will be reluctant. So they can't go through the normal process. They will need to bring the papers. They might not know if they are filling all the requirements before hitting the airport. I remember in one webinar, one person from United was explaining this couple that they were on the wedding trip, and on the airport they were refused to board because they didn't have the right information, the right documentation, because the PCR test was not the right one. So all these things you can save if you do it before hitting the airport. So doing it from home with your app, so you will have the QR code, okay to fly, so you will save all that experience. So, but if the traveler doesn't feel confident yet, then it's no problem. They can just go to the normal queue with the documents, with the papers, and then just do a longer queue. That's the alternative.
Absolutely. And there's also a good opportunity for travel managers in there to send the messaging to their travelers, to engage them and really explain that this is for the best ease of the journey, and we can certainly help them with that, with conveying that message to their travelers. A very good question, the last one. We're living in Europe, and a lot of those feeder flights have been replaced by rail. So you do have trains going from Belgium to the Netherlands, France, etc. A lot of high-speed rails. Does the digital health pass also apply for rail transport, Jorge?
Okay, and the last question that I don't have an answer for. The thing is, at the moment, digital health passes are really promoted by airlines and adopted by airlines. Nothing yet. We are after the major suppliers of trains in Europe. Is nothing yet about those. So we believe that it will be because it will help them to expedite the boarding process, but it's nothing confirmed yet. I'm sure that the EU Green Pass is going to play a role once will be launched, for example, for Thalys and those trains, because it will be helping, but it's nothing yet on that.
I think where you're most likely to see it will be where there are code shares. So I think Air France has code shares on SNCF TGV services. I think that Lufthansa might have code shares on Deutsche Bahn ICE services. So where they're sharing a common code, that's where you might see digital health passes feature, particularly if you're making a seamless connection, you know, on your New York, Frankfurt, and then train to Dusseldorf service, for example. You might see it used all the way through there, but I think that's the most likely place you'll start to see it, is where there is an integrated intermodal journey going on between plane and train.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you. I'll answer. We just got another question. I'll answer that one quickly. Is the COVID-19 Information Hub available for non-customers of BCD Travel? Yes, the COVID Hub is freely available. It's a web address. We'll send the link in our follow-up presentation, in our follow-up email, so that you can also share this with your travelers. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time, Jorge and Mike. Much appreciated. We know how busy you are, how much you've been asked to do this kind of webinars. I'd also like to thank our clients for joining our session today. As I said, the recording will be made available to you. Please also share it, forward it if they missed out. In our follow-up email, as I mentioned, we will also share that report about the digital health passes so you have the full overview to make the right decision, and also the link to our COVID-19 hub. Now, before summer, we're already preparing for our other upcoming online events in the Benelux. So I'd say keep an eye out on your mailbox for the new invitation. We look forward to seeing you again at our next event. Have a great rest of your day. Goodbye.